Hey y'all, this is Gabriel DeCara with Elizabeth Warren's team here in Nevada. I am with some fabulous folks to have a conversation on the intersection between labor and environmental issues. Jennifer, why don't you get us started off?
Alrighty, my name is Jennifer, and I am the owner of One Source Network Union Print Shop here in Northern Nevada. And I am also a mother of three beautiful boys. And how my story kind of connects with climate is because I am here to protect their future and making sure that they have clean water, clean public lands, and of course, clean air. So that's kind of where my connection is in with this conversation.
Hello, my name is Alex Goff. I'm Nevada's Democratic National Committeeman. I serve on City of Reno's Human Rights Commission, also with my local union, the IUE CWA Local 89118. I'm their political director. And what I can say about the labor movement that's really interesting is that as younger members continue to get involved, they bring a different set of issues to the table, and one of them being climate. And so I'm very excited to be part of this conversation because I think it just continues the momentum of members of the labor community understanding that we have to do things differently than what we've done in the past, and understanding intersectional issues to our movement is important for not only our survival as a movement, but our survival as a population.
Great. And I'm Leah Stokes. I'm an assistant professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and I work on climate policy and politics. And I'm really excited to be talking with you both because, historically the labor movement and the environmental movement haven't always been the best of friends, but I feel like we really are in a moment where things can be shifting and where we can understand that fighting for minimum wages, for better pay, and for climate justice can be really compatible with one another, because we understand that a lot of Americans are struggling to just pay their energy bills today, and that's in part because of rising inequality and the collapse of unions. And so if we can make sure that everybody has a living wage, it'll be easier for them to manage the energy transition, and unions can be a really key partner in that transition too.
Yeah, and so Jennifer, why don't you start off in terms of environmental issues and where they overlap with labor and with union issues in your business. What are you like? What are you seeing with the industry and with labor and what's happening right now?
So the first big part for me of opening, I just opened my union right at the end of the last with Jackie Rosen. Senator Jackie Rosen was my go gal, and we were printing for her all her lovely yard signs. And as an environmentalist, I was realizing how much plastic we were putting back into the environment. And originally, I didn't necessarily want to be the union owner, but I knew stepping into this role, I've already did design work for a lot of campaigns and wanted to bring union work back to Nevada and supporting local small businesses as well. So I have been reaching out with first opening up my union. I did it in a bit of a unique way with partnering up with local small print shops and unionizing them from within. And now I have joined forces with the Nevada Hemp Association, and we're going to be printing our signs on instead of plastic, it'll be hemp. And to make it more sustainable, but also decomposable in our lovely landfills. So, and also starting to print on hemp paper, and also making all of the clothing that we're printing for all these wonderful campaigns, making their shirts and hats and all their products hemp as well. And then by showing by example that through my small union right now that we can be sustainable and also provide to the environment by giving them the same wear that they usually have, same quality, but more sustainable and decomposable. So that's the first step I'm taking as a union owner, and making sure that my employees are fair wages and supporting local small business at the same time. Excellent.
How about you, Alex? What are you
So
seeing?
one thing that I'm really excited about that our International actually does is they provide industrial consulting for the businesses that they operate under. And so what they actually do is they go to their plants and they examine how they can do things in a cleaner, better way, because ultimately what it does is drive down the plant's cost, because oftentimes when you're sitting at the negotiation table, the thing that is the constraint the company will state is money. Well, our bottom line, well, money this. And so if you can help companies by providing this consulting, which could be, you know, very, very expensive for them if you provide it for them at a free cost, and you give them a pathway to where they can do things in a more sustainable way. That way, hopefully, the idea is not only are you providing better for your community where our union members live, but ultimately you can take away that constraint of the financial aspect of it, and hopefully be able to get better pay and wages for your workers. And also, I've seen a lot of things at the international level as well, where they incorporate different discussions into the trainings that in the past the labor movement can always do better at, right? So a lot of intersectional topics, such as environmental issues, such as understanding the different roles of minorities in our communities and the importance of lifting up their voices and the understanding of representing their voices. And so a lot of members have come back from international trainings with a better understanding. And I think that labor is such a vital partner because it's about conversations with our members, conversation in our communities. Like, we really see ourselves as being really, our wages go to support so many other efforts in the communities, not because only of our donations, but where we spend our money on local sources, et cetera, et cetera. And so understanding that this is another aspect to where you have a role in keeping the environment clean locally, and you have the role in keeping things sustainable for the future for, the children and the children's children.
And so, Leah, what about you in terms of the bigger picture policy stuff? Where is the labor movement? How are they helping, shape the conversation as it relates to environmental policy?
Yeah, so there are definitely some leaders like the Labor Network for Sustainability that are really working to try to bring the environmental movement and the labor movement closer together. I would say the same is true for the Sunrise Movement. They're trying to work very strongly to build that bridge. And the challenge is that historically we've had pretty good unionization rates within the fossil fuel sector, and people within that sector have made pretty good paying jobs. So that has made it challenging to both transition away from that economy and to build up a new economy that is as equally as unionized and equally as well paying. A lot of jobs in the clean energy economy so far haven't been paid as well or come with as many benefits. And so I think in order to make this transition work, we're going to have to make sure that as we build the new economy, we're making sure that people are profiting off of that in the United States, that they have good paying jobs, that they have health care, that they have pensions. All of those issues are really important in order to make sure that the transition can be supported by the labor movement broadly and by all Americans.
Yeah, definitely. Jennifer, I wanted to ask you, so in terms of, from the other side, I asked you first about the labor side, but in terms of the environmental policy side, right? I know that there are some, like Leah was talking about, there are folks that are worried that good environmental policy will cost jobs. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how to deal with those concerns?
So I am a consultant in the environment field, and I've worked on many bills, like with having 100% renewable energy here in Nevada by 2050 and getting electric school buses going. And it has amazed me how much money is actually sitting out there as far as grants and other funding to actually help our environment. Just with the electric school buses here in Nevada, that was a lawsuit that happened with Volkswagen that was jeopardizing our kids' health on the way to school by the buses not being properly maintained and the diesel getting into their lungs as they're going to school. Then they get off the school bus and they can't breathe and they have to go home, and they just lost the whole school day, which then rolls into our future of having labor children in the field and when they're older, and understanding that they need healthy lungs to be able to work in the future. So we won alongside a lot of other states with that lawsuit, and we're able to use that money as a pilot program here. So another thing I like to always point out, what Governor Sandoval did here when we were starting to shut down our coal factories, We only have one left, but when we were shutting down, it was a huge fear with the coal industry. This is their home. A lot of their fathers' fathers have been in this industry, and this is what they know. But Governor Sandoval was able to do a stimulus program for when they came out. They had a stimulus check and they had training to go into the new industry. So it took away that fear, and that's the main thing. Is it's that fear motion of how am I going to go into this new industry? I'm not even trained. You're taking away the only thing I know, and the only thing I really care about is how am I feeding my children at night, let alone thinking about how that coal is damaging their lungs, let alone teaching their children to go into that industry in the future as well, that we can teach them a clean future. So as far as the government working with that, that's how I see that there's many ways that we can have the conversation around this to make it affordable and not taking away the only thing you know, and showing that there is a clean future here.
And if I could just speak to that, one thing that I think Senator Elizabeth Warren understands and puts into her plans is that we need to make it easier for members to join unions generally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the fear is that contracts, hopefully throughout time, get better and better, but you certainly work on provisions that have been frustrating and annoying for your members every time you get the opportunity to sit at the contract table. And so to think of losing a contract, it may just be words on a paper, but for members of labor, it's hard work and sacrifice, and sometimes people have had to go on strikes to be able to earn these wages, these benefits. And so as we have conversations where, no, you'll just be able to get new jobs, sometimes that's not enough, sometimes it's not comforting. At the Oscars, there was just a documentary done about a glass plant in Dayton, Ohio, where they've had issues unionizing it. Prior to that, it was a GM plant where there was union jobs, well-paying union jobs, and now, there's tactics and everything, but ultimately the workers are just happy to get jobs again because they've been for so long without. And so those things obviously creep in and make it harder. Is that how long will I be out without a job? How long will I be out without benefits? But understanding that we need to make it easier for workers to join unions and being able to organize, I think could help with any transitions of any concern or fear, because people then will feel like they're not going to be left without protection, because, especially in a right to work state like we are here in Nevada, where employers don't need a good reason to let you go, you want to be able to know that you're going to have a future for your family, to where you're going to be able to pay the bills and put food on the table. And so I think it's important to recognize that industries moving forward, we need to make sure that people are able to organize and join unions.
And I love that he brought up the glass thing, because my mind automatically went to this is where education, I always go by the 3 E's, educate, empower, and then engage. Where glass is not supplying the oil and fracking industries that are destroying our earth. So a glass union is the #1 union that we could empower to bring up. People in the millennial generation, which I am, are starting to realize, I don't want to buy that plastic jug, I want the glass jug back. I don't want to buy the plastic ketchup and mustard, I want to buy the glass one. Where this is where we could start building our union in the glass industry, let alone any other industry that we're talking about with electricity and just growing our towns and everything we're talking about right now as well.
Yeah, and Leah, could you talk a bit about that opportunity and where there's the opportunity in fighting climate change and investing in our clean energy economy? Can you talk about where the opportunity there is as it relates to labor?
Yeah, I think climate change can feel really overwhelming for people. It's really scary. It feels like, can we even do anything? But to flip that around, it actually is a massive opportunity. This is sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to completely rebuild the economy, to have lots of good-paying jobs for everybody to do. Because if we want to transform the way that our cars work, the way that our homes are heated and cooled, the way that our electricity runs, that means we have to get a lot of people to work. And the question is, how do we compensate those people? Do we pay them fair living wages? Do we make sure that they have a social safety net and benefits? Or do we not do those things? And I think the vision that a number of Democrats have put forward, but certainly Elizabeth Warren, is the idea that we have to make sure that people will have a living wage, that they have to be able to have social benefits, and that they have to be able to join a union to make sure that they're getting those benefits if they want to do that. So I think that as we create new sectors of the economy and we transform the economy away from fossil fuels towards clean energy resources, we have an opportunity to also reshape inequality in this country and make sure that everybody can be part of the economy going forward, not just wealthy people or the 1%.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you so much. I think that those are the questions that I had. Is there anything that anyone wants to add or check in on? Professor Stokes, this is a very specific, very cool group of three human beings who are interacting and talking about these issues. So, are there any follow-up questions that anyone had?
Do you have any questions?
I just thought, when you were saying about the future of well-paying jobs, I mean, there's jobs that are important today to today's economy. I think all the time of home healthcare workers
Yes.
who take care of people as they're passing, and they're paid oftentimes low wages because this is something that we accept as a society, sadly. There's no real reason, or there's not the demand or supply issue. It's just that we've decided that we want to pay these workers low wages. And so as we look to, part of this Democratic cycle was discussion about future and automation and what's to come. But what I believe is, and the president of the AFL-CIO, Rich Trumka, always says, is that in the present we need strong unions for good-paying jobs, and in the future we're going to need strong unions for good-paying jobs. And so saying about an opportunity to completely reformat our entire society, restructuring heating and cooling in homes, and that there's opportunity. I mean, some of these concerns about robotics and AI that really, I think, stresses a lot of communities out, especially because we've seen communities decimated and jobs sent overseas because of, frankly, companies wanting to find the lowest wages they can. These are domestic jobs that are going to be hard to export, and we can decide to pay workers fair wages, which is really exciting because, like I said, it's in front of a lot of people's minds, or what is my future, but not only that, but what are my children's future?
Yeah, no, but you can't ship overseas a retrofit of a home for energy efficiency or for, changing out a natural gas heater for an electric heater. Those things have to be done in your community. And so I think that's an opportunity to have work all across the country. There's also this idea of a civilian climate corps where you could have people working to do all the work that needs to get done on climate change through a corps, which I think is a really interesting idea. And I think you're totally right when you talk about care work. Care work is a low carbon activity, right? It doesn't involve a lot of emissions. And because historically it's done by women, and we've historically been discriminatory towards women in terms of pay equity, we don't pay them as much.
Right.
But we can make choices to raise people's standard of living and to create more equality across our society. And I think that is something that is really important in this race. And at the end of the day, we should hope that we will have a nominee that will really prioritize economic equality, because I think that dealing with the climate crisis will not be easy to do if we don't also ensure there's more equality.
Dream big, fight hard.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when I talk to people with climate, one of my favorite things is when I'm tabling, people will come up, oh, what are you about? Oh, we're here to talk about climate change. Oh, I don't want to talk about, because it's a word that has been oversaid, and there's miscommunication out there, and there's not the proper education. But when I state, do you notice that the climate's changing around you? Oh, yes, yeah, I've noticed there's been more fires than ever, that there's more hurricanes, and just simply changing the word and connecting it with labor and union. Our country was built on industry and showing the example to the world. We are at an opportunity right now to do it again. It is time for another revolution, and be the example for America. And that's something I love about Warren, and understanding that we need to dream big and fight hard. It starts with planting that seed, and then let's let it grow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah, definitely. Have a good night.